The most feared prison in America gave its inmates hot showers, and it was not an act of kindness. It was a weapon. What you are about to discover will change everything you thought you knew about surviving Alcatraz. Here is something almost no one tells you about Alcatraz. The most feared prison in American history gave its inmates hot water, not lukewarm, not barely warm, genuinely hot showers, piped directly into the cell house, available to every single prisoner. And this was not an act of mercy. It was one of the most calculated psychological weapons the federal government ever deployed against the men trapped on that island. Imagine yourself standing on the concrete dock of Alcatraz Island in 1940. The San Francisco skyline glitters across the bay, close enough that you could almost believe you could swim there. The salt wind cuts through your prison-issued clothes immediately. You smell diesel from the boat that brought you here, mixed with the mineral dampness of fog rolling off the Pacific. Seagulls circle overhead, their cries the only sound besides the waves slapping against the rocks below. A guard gestures you forward without a word. Your shoes echo against the steep path leading upward toward the cell house. You are now federal property. And for the next years of your life, every single aspect of your existence, including when you wash, how you wash, and what happens when your body needs to eliminate waste, will be controlled by other men. The cell house itself hits you like a wall of noise and smell the moment you step inside. 300 cells stacked in long rows, each one barely 5 feet wide. The ventilation system hums constantly but never quite manages to clear the air. You catch the scent of industrial soap, damp concrete, cigarette smoke, and underneath it all, something human and inescapable. This building holds over 250 men at any given time. They eat here, they sleep here, and they perform every bodily function here, in cells that offer almost no privacy from the guard walking past every few minutes. Your cell becomes your entire universe. Look around. A steel cot bolted to the wall, a small fold-down desk, a shelf for your few permitted possessions. And there, in the corner, sits the most important object in your daily existence, a toilet and a small sink, both made of cold steel, both completely exposed to anyone passing by. There is no door on your cell. There is only a wall of bars. When you use that toilet, guards can see you. Other inmates walking past can see you. The man in the cell directly across from you can see you. Privacy, that most basic human dignity, simply does not exist here. Now here is where the reality of Alcatraz becomes something most people never consider. That toilet? You flush it. The water runs. But toilet paper arrives in carefully rationed quantities. You receive a set amount per week, and that amount is not negotiable. Run out early, and you wait. There is no requesting more. There is no improvising with newspaper or rags. Contraband rules are absolute. And guards conduct regular cell inspections that would catch any deviation immediately. Men learn to calculate. They learn to be precise in ways that would seem absurd anywhere else but became essential here. The sink in your cell provides cold water only. You can wash your face. You can rinse your hands. But anything resembling a real bath requires the shower room. And showers operate on a strict schedule determined entirely by the institution. Twice a week, your cell block marches to the shower area. Not when you feel dirty, not when you need it. When the schedule says, the water, as mentioned, runs hot. Deliberately so. Warden James Johnston understood something crucial about prison management. Men who have been swimming in the freezing waters of San Francisco Bay cannot claim their bodies were already acclimated to cold. Hot showers meant any escape attempt would be more shocking to the system, more likely to cause hypothermia. Comfort, in Alcatraz, always served control. The shower room itself presented its own strange theater of vulnerability. Imagine standing naked in a concrete room with dozens of other men, all of you hardened criminals, all of you stripped of every marker of status or threat. Guards watched from elevated positions. The water ran for a set number of minutes. You soaped, you rinsed, you dried with a small towel, and you returned to your cell. There was no lingering. There was no conversation. The efficiency bordered on industrial. Shaving operated under equally rigid supervision. Razors obviously could become weapons, so inmates never touched them directly. Instead, barbers, themselves prisoners, carefully selected and monitored, shaved faces under guard observation. You sat still while another inmate held a blade to your throat, both of you knowing that one wrong movement meant solitary confinement for him and potentially much worse for you. The intimacy was forced, clinical, and charged with unspoken tension. Men learned to trust without trusting, to submit to vulnerability because the alternative meant growing a beard, which was not permitted, which meant punishment, which meant the hole. The hole. D block. The disciplinary segregation cells where men were sent for violations ranging from talking during meals to attempting escape. If the regular cells stripped away privacy, the hole stripped away humanity. Some of those cells had no light whatsoever. Men sat in complete darkness for days, sometimes weeks. The toilet still functioned, but in darkness, you found it by feel. The smell in those cells grew thick and permanent, absorbed into the concrete itself over years of use. Men emerged from the hole blinking, disoriented, sometimes fundamentally changed. The absence of light did things to the human mind that modern psychology would later document extensively, but in 1940, it was simply called discipline. Consider for a moment what happens to the human body without regular washing. Skin conditions flourished in Alcatraz despite the hot showers. The damp, salt-laden air of the island created perfect conditions for fungal infections. Men developed rashes between their toes, under their arms, in the creases of their bodies. The prison hospital treated these conditions when they became severe. But prevention was nearly impossible when your entire existence occurred in a concrete box with limited air circulation and clothing that was washed on an institutional schedule, not when it actually needed washing. Laundry happened once a week. You surrendered your dirty clothes, received clean ones in exchange. The system functioned with remarkable efficiency. Alcatraz was, after all, a federal showcase, intended to prove that the government could contain the nation's most dangerous criminals. But efficiency and comfort are not the same thing. Wearing the same underwear for 7 days straight in a damp climate, sleeping on sheets that accumulated a week's worth of sweat and skin, these were the mundane degradations that accumulated into something heavier than any single punishment could achieve. The food, surprisingly, was decent. 3 meals a day, hot, sufficient in calories, served in a dining hall where silence was enforced with absolute rigidity. But eating created its own sanitation concerns. After meals, you returned to your cell, and whatever digestive consequences followed played out in that exposed toilet, while guards made their rounds. Stomach illness spread through the population in waves. When one man got sick, others followed, because the ventilation connected every cell, because the proximity made isolation impossible, because 250 human bodies living in that kind of density simply cannot avoid sharing everything, including their illnesses. Medical care existed but operated under prison logic. Sick call happened at designated times. You reported your symptoms to guards who had no medical training, who decided whether your complaint warranted attention. Men learned to minimize genuine suffering because complaining too often earned a reputation, and reputations in Alcatraz could become dangerous. Meanwhile, dental problems went untreated until they became emergencies. Infections festered. Small wounds became serious because the environment itself seemed designed to prevent healing. The mental toll of all this accumulated invisibly. Imagine years of never being alone with your body. Years of performing your most private functions under observation. Years of scheduled washing, rationed supplies, institutional smells, and the constant low-grade awareness that you have no control over your own physical existence. Men developed rituals, small private habits that gave them some illusion of autonomy. One former inmate described how he would clean his cell obsessively, wiping down every surface daily, creating through labor what the institution denied through design, a sense of ownership over his immediate space. And yet remarkably, men survived. They adapted. They found ways to maintain dignity in conditions designed to erode it. They traded favors for extra soap. They developed systems of mutual respect in the shower room. They learned which guards would allow an extra minute of water and which ones counted seconds. The human capacity to create normalcy in abnormal conditions revealed itself daily in Alcatraz, not because the men there were exceptional, but because humans, when pressed, will always search for ways to feel human. The fog rolls in again as evening approaches. You hear the distant clang of the dinner bell, the shuffle of hundreds of feet moving in unison toward the dining hall. Tomorrow will be shower day. You have calculated your toilet paper supply and believe it will last until the next distribution. Your skin itches in places you cannot scratch publicly. Your clothes smell like your body, and your body smells like this island, this concrete, this life you did not choose, but must somehow endure. Alcatraz closed in 1963, deemed too expensive to maintain. The salt water corroded everything. The isolation made supply delivery complicated. And perhaps, somewhere in the federal bureaucracy, someone understood that the sheer difficulty of keeping 250 men alive on a rock in the middle of the bay had exceeded its value as a symbol. Today, tourists walk those same cell blocks, peer into those same exposed toilets, and try to imagine what it felt like. They cannot, not really, because imagination fails where the body has not suffered. But now, at least, you know something closer to the truth. If this glimpse into the hidden reality of Alcatraz made you see the island differently, you are exactly the kind of viewer this channel was built for. We explore the details that history books skip over, the textures, the smells, the daily struggles that shaped how people actually lived. Hit subscribe so you do not miss the next journey into the past. And I am genuinely curious. What surprised you most about this story? The hot showers? The rationed toilet paper? Drop a comment below. I read every single one, and your questions often inspire future videos. Let's keep uncovering the truth together.